Amma ba'd. We continue 720 Sunday, September the 1st, which is the second Muharram. We continue the narrations, or rather we're still in the same chapter. We're in the same chapter in Kitaab At-Tawheed in regards to how the Messenger of Allah ﷺ informed that some of his ummah will worship awthan, that they will worship idols. We stopped at the narration, rather we concluded and finished. The narration in regards to how the Messenger of Allah explained how his ummah will resemble the people of the book. So much to the point that if they were to crawl in a lizard hole, or if they was to make a hole, it resembles the hole of the lizard, and they crawled into it, that out of resemblance of the Jews and the Christians, they would do similar to that. They would have that hole and they would crawl right into it. To let one know how much resemblance or how much amazement that the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ will have, to the point that they will what? Resemble the Jews and the Christians in everything. And the most sacred of affairs, like we said, is worship of the ibad of Allah. As the ibad of Allah Ta'ala, the ibad of Allah is the most sacred. And what one draws close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by is the most sacred of affairs. And we know that the origin of the affairs of ibadah is that everything is haram. You'll find that Al-Ilm that they mention also fil ibadat al-man' illa idha wujida nas. That the origin of worship, to let one know how sacred it is that the origin of these affairs of worship is that everything is prohibited. Everything is mamnu'. Everything is prohibited unless there's a text to support its legislation. If that's not the case, then it's incumbent upon one not to perform anything in which he draws close to his Lord by in worship, unless he knows there's an authentic text establishing it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? For origin in the affairs of worship is al-mana'. Al-mana'. Everything is prohibited. So, being that the case, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ informed how his ummah will resemble the Christians in the most sacred of affairs, which is ibadah. Whether it be them performing the Eid, of what we see, what some of the Muslims do and perform as far as celebration of the Prophet ﷺ's birthday, and certain affairs that they partake in that are in opposition to what Allah and His Messenger have legislated. And even the affairs of the ibadah, same thing. You'll find that they partake in certain affairs that is in opposition to what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, or Allah, number one, first legislated, and likewise upon the tongue of His Messenger ﷺ. And then it branched out, and as we know, that it trickled down to what? Even to the point of how we look. How you'll find how the Muslims have fell into resembling the non-Muslims, not only in the affairs of worship, but also in the affairs of their look, as far as certain things that the Messenger of Allah made obligatory, and resemblance, where men resemble women and women resemble men. All these affairs you'll find in which some of the ummah has fell into as a result of being amazed. Of being amazed at the non-Muslims and what they indulge in. And you'll find that some of the Muslims, like we said, out of resemblance and out of taqleed, and blind following them because they find it with their life for some odd reason amazing, then they follow them in that. So you'll find that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ had clearly said in this hadith that you're going to definitely follow the ways of those who preceded you from before. And this is a warning not to do it, to stay far away from it, not to partake, especially in the affairs that are most sacred with us, which is the affairs of worship, and everything that's pertaining to the worship of Allah, and what has been legislated as a good deed to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by. So that was the last narration where we stopped in which I wanted to give a little bit more information, but there's more to come. But inshallah, bi'idhnillah, if we have a little bit more time, we'll go back to it. The next narration, if everyone looks in their book, is in the Hadith of Muslim. If you look in your book, which is the Hadith of Thawban. The Hadith of Thawban. Said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said that Inna Allah zawa li al-ard, fara'aytu mashariqaha wa magharibaha, wa inna ummati siyablughu mulkuha ma zuya li minha, wa u'titu al-kanzayn, al-ahmaru wal-abyad. The first part of the hadith, it says, verily Allah gathered the earth for me. He gathered the earth for me. As we know, this is from the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ, or from the signs that Allah had given to our Messenger, ﷺ, where He gathered for him the earth. And He said, I've seen the east and the west. If you notice, everyone, the Messenger of Allah did not say what? Here in this narration. He did not say, biting your nails. He did not say the north and the south. Rather, He said that His ummah was going to reach the distance of what? The east and the west. He did not say of what? The north and the south. Where Islam, of course, did spread a little. But the most dominant, what we see, is what the Messenger of Allah mentioned here. That Islam spread it to the furthest corner of the east and the furthest corner of the what? Of the west. Type. So it says, I seen the east and the west of it. And verily, the kingdom of my ummah will reach what was gathered in front of me. And I was given al-kanzayn al-ahmar wal-abyad. I was given the treasures of Persia and the treasures of Rome. And verily I asked my Lord for my nation, or for my followers, not to destroy it, bisanatin amma, not to destroy them due to a sana. Sana meaning here, jadb, a drought. A sana means like a drought, or it can mean a famine. It can mean a drought. It can also be meaning a famine. But here I think when they translate in your books, if I'm not mistaken, I think they translate as famine. They translate as drought here, as a qaht. Okay. But at any rate, it says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not destroy them due to a drought. It also is comprehensive for what? A famine. Bisanatin bi'amma. And He said, and also not to overpower against them an enemy from other than themselves. And they will legalize their baydah. And I'll talk about the meaning of that statement. فَإِنَّ رَبِّي قَالَ يَا Muhammad. And then my Lord said, O Muhammad, verily if I preordain an affair, if I preordain or determine an affair, for verily it will not be repelled, meaning it has to be carried out. For verily I gave your ummah that I will not destroy them due to a drought or famine. And I will not give over, or I will not give power against them an enemy from other than themselves, and they will legalize their baydah. And I'm going to explain that. Even if they were gathered at the corners of the earth, until they will what? Until they will start to now destroy themselves, and they will take themselves as captives, or they will take one another as captives. طيب. You'll find, ya ma'ashal ikhwan, this tremendous hadith of Thawban, the great Sahabi. As you'll find that Thawban, oh man, Amir, do you want to call the adhan? I think it's in. Yeah, I think it's in there. It just came in about a minute ago. Yeah, I think it just came in. Yeah. Yeah, Maghrib's in. I think it just came in. I thought 7:38. 7:30. No, 7:38 was Friday. I think it's now 7:37, 7:36. doesn't say anything about yeast powder. Bragg's. Nutritional yeast. No. No. Nutritional yeast doesn't raise your cholesterol. What will help your cholesterol is you eating saturated fat. The good fat. Good fat, saturated fat will lower the bad cholesterol, raise the good cholesterol. It'll raise it, all right? I'm telling you, a lot of things that we were taught here in America, just as a lot of us learned that what we were upon of falsehood in our religion was false, a lot of things that we were taught in our diets was false also. As you get older, you'll gain more wisdom. How you were taught to eat is also wrong. Just as your religion was wrong, and your belief system was wrong, and your mind was messed up, then you believe in Islam. When you learn Salafiyya, you believe how warped and messed up your mind was. As you gain more knowledge and more knowledge, you'll be like, wow, my mind is really messed up. Before I was Muslim, I was really messed up. My mind, the way I think. The same thing as you learn about eating. How America put out as a way of eating was also wrong. It's the opposite. They tell you high carbohydrates is good, low fat is good. That's the diet of America. Eat more carbohydrates, lower your fat. It's the opposite. They got it reversed. Lower your sugar, raise your saturated fat. That's how America did. They switched everything around. It's supposed to be the opposite. It's the opposite. They flipped it. I know it's going to feel funny at first. Trust me, I was there with you guys. I was like, man, I'm eating fat and I'm feeling energetic. What's going on? Am I staying away from sugar and sugary drinks and all this? What's going on? This feels funny. Just like as you got to, one day, inshallah, you guys will try it. One day. The only reason why I got sick last time is because I went to the extremes and purified my body. So I got sick. Went to the extremes and purified because I purify my body every day, and my body was just like, that's enough. You gotta calm down. I'll talk to you about it later. But at any rate, I'm fine now. At any rate, like I was saying, if you look in your book, focus. So it says now in the hadith, verily Allah Ta'ala that He gathered for me the earth. Oh, it's at the end. Oh, okay. Oh, it's at the end. I'll do it later. Fine. So you'll find that the message of Allah said that Allah Ta'ala gathered the dunya of the east and the west, gathered it in front of Him like a kef. They say like a hand that was close, brought together. Like a what? Like a mir'ah. Of what we understand. That the message of Allah sallallahu and which was a sign of His prophethood, that this had actually happened, where the earth was gathered in front of Him. And it was made to the point where He was able to see the distance of the east and the west. And this was something that was only for the message of Allah sallallahu. And where Allah allowed Him to see the distances of what? Of the east and the west. In which we know that Islam has spread it where, everyone? Spread it all the way to the furthest distance of the east, where we know that it surpassed even all the way up to what? Up to where, everyone? Up to China. As they say, وَرَاءَ النَّهَرْ وَوَرَاءَ خُرَاسَانِ. Those were the old cities. If you'll find of what we know today of all the stands, like Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and all the stands, especially where Bukhara was originally, where the city of Bukhara is at, and Tirmidh, all those lands, all the way up to the reach China, was conquered by the Muslims. All to the furthest extent of the east, all the way up to China. Islam spread it all the way there, all the way up to where Mongolia is. Islam spread it. The Messenger of Allah said and predicted this was going to happen based upon a revelation that Allah revealed to him. And it also spread it to the furthest distance of the west, where we know that Islam has spread it, everyone, to all the way up to where we know Morocco today. It even went past Morocco all the way up to where? To Spain. The Muslims reached that place. And they conquered their certain lands, of course, in Spain. The Islam spread it all from that, which is now, today, in the Middle East and in the Jazirat al-Arab, in the Arab region, all the way up to the places in Europe and in Africa. And Allah Ta'ala had said to the Messenger of Allah, revealed this to him, and it happened. And it's still happening. As far as the ittisa' or the expansion of Islam and the distance of the north and the south, then we know that it did happen, but not to the extent of what happened between the east and the west. It reaches the furthest extent of what we can imagine, even to the point where it's now landing in America and passing America and other different lands. Still to this day, Islam is still spreading the furthest distance of the east and the west. Even to there is actually Muslims that occupy China. And there is Muslims here in America to the end of it, which is clear. So all this is to clearly establish what the message of Allah said here, actualize. As far as in the distance of south and the north, then that wasn't mentioned in the hadith. And as you see currently right now, that wasn't what was, Islam spread it to a certain extent, as far as in the north and the south, but not as much as it did in the east and the west. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So it said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned and said that this will happen, and it would take place, and it would spread to this distance. Now it says in the narration, I was given two treasures. أُعْطِيتُ الْكَنْزَيْنِ أَحْمَرْ وَأَبْيَضْ. Ahmar, red and white. What is the meaning of red? You'll find the Ahl Ilm say that the meaning of red here is the treasures of Caesar. The treasures of Caesar, of Caesar. And we knew Caesar was the king of what, everyone? Of Rome. And the type of treasures that they were known to have, their currency was gold. It was gold. It was dhahab. It was gold. That was the currency in which, or the treasures of who? Of Caesar. Of Caesar. So Prophet ﷺ was also given another type of information to the Muslims, that verily their kingdom will be dominated and their kingdom will fall. Their kingdom will fall. And as we know, the treasures of Caesar, or all the kings of Caesar had fell, and the treasures of them were brought to the Muslims. Did this take place? This did take place. So the message of Allah in this narration, if you look in your books, that it clearly says what, everyone? That it was be given the treasures of who? Of Rome. To let you know that their kingdom will be what? Their kingdom will be removed, and it will fall, and it will collapse. And this did happen. The falling of Rome, which were the two dominant kingdoms around the Muslims at the time of the message of Allah ﷺ, those two kingdoms, which were Persia and Rome, that they what? Collapsed. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying clearly here that the treasures of them will be what? Given to the Muslims. Where it clearly says in the narration, I was given the treasures of who? Abyad, Ahmar. Ahmar meaning the gold of Caesar, which is the what? The kingdom of Rome. That it will fall. And their treasures will be given to the Muslims. That's the meaning of this particular narration. Did it mention here where it said, أُعْطِيتُ الْكَنْزَيْنِ الْأَحْمَرُ وَالْأَبْيَضُ. Abyad is who, everyone, as we know, represents what? Or who? Persia. As Persia was also from the dominant kingdoms around the Muslims at the time when the message of Allah was sent as the messenger and the prophet. They were the second one who was what? Was dominant. And they were more in the east. They were more towards the east, up to where Iran is and around in that region, and where Iraq is. And that region is where Persia were. That's where they occupied. Persia. So you have Persia and Rome were the two powerful kingdoms around the Muslims before they collapsed. The Prophet ﷺ said here also that Persia will collapse and their treasures will be brought to the what? To the Muslims. And we know that their currency that they use, meaning Persia, was more of Johar and Fidda. That the type of currency that they utilized was more of jewelry and silver. It was more jewelry and silver. Huh? Persia represents white. I was given red, and he said I was given white. The meaning of white, meaning the treasures in the gold, not the gold, the treasures in the silver of Persia. The treasures, which are the silver and the jewelry of Persia. So that is an indication from the signs of prophethood that their kingdom will also, what everyone? It will fall, will collapse. And to the point where the narration where the Prophet ﷺ said, which is in Al-Bukhari, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَتُنْفِقُنَّ كُنُوزَهُمَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. He said, I swear by the one who's in my hand, you will most definitely spend their treasures in the cause of Allah. What's that to show, everyone? That the kingdoms of what? Of Rome and Persia will what? Will collapse. And all their treasures will be brought to the Muslims, and this is exactly what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned, actualized. It happened. It took place. As we know, the majority of Rome, their religion was what, everyone? It was Nasraniya, it was Christianity. Majority of Rome were upon Christianity. And the majority of the Diyana, or the practice of Persia was what, everyone? Is that they were Ubad al-Nar. It was Majus. They were people who worshippers of the fire. They were Majusiya. Or they were Magians who used to worship fire. So you find that we mentioned and said that Persia, or these two dominant kingdoms before the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, before the advent of his messengership alayhi salatu wasalam, that these are the ones whose kingdoms were dominant and they both collapsed. Especially during the Khilafah, or especially during the Caliphate, or the time of Umar al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu wa. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. Then the Messenger of Allah, if you look at the narration, it says, I ask for my Lord, for my ummah, not to destroy them due to a famine or due to a drought. طيب. This means, these are one of the requests that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned. Before we cover the explanation of each wording that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ mentioned in this narration here, we wanted to lay down a foundation. That the Messenger of Allah ﷺ, when he asked these supplications, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted some, and he what? Did not answer and agree with another. As we know that. That's established here in this narration. However, what we want to now establish to everyone, that even though some of them could be destroyed, yes, that could happen, does not mean it would generalize all of them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Because there will always be a group from his ummah that will be what? Victorious upon the truth. To let one know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never allow that the Muslims be decimated or totally destroyed altogether. There will always be someone who will remain from amongst them on the earth until the affair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes, which is that wind that will emanate from where? From Yemen, and then it will take them. And that's it. And then upon that is the final days on the earth when the day of resurrection will be established. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. However, there are certain places where a sana amma or jadb or qahat, where it can take place, where a drought or famine can take place, where it could destroy some of the ummah. As this has happened during the history, where it can take place, where some of them could be what? Could be harmed by drought or famine. Whereas there are other Muslims in other lands that did not what? Be afflicted with this type of what? With this type of affliction. And some of them will aid them, as we see today. Some of the Muslims who now are facing some type of difficulty, and you'll find Muslims in other countries giving them aid and giving them relief, due to the fact that they were not tested with that particular what? Affliction. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. However, this still does not now prevent this narration, what we're discussing here, that the fact that this type of affliction, or this type of catastrophic affair will not take place with some of the Muslims, that it can happen. Because it has happened. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? But notice it says in the narration, if you look at your books, what does it say? Bisanatin amma. Amma. A general what? Drought, or a general what? Famine that will what? That will consume everyone. It will consume Everyone. Rather, it could be some of the Muslims that could be affected and afflicted, while some aren't not affected or afflicted with this type of what? Catastrophe. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's why the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, أَلَّا يُهْلِكَهُمْ بِسَنَةٍ عَامَّةٍ. A type of drought that would generalize everyone, it would consume everyone, not leaving anyone left from the Muslims. Is it clear? So the meaning of the hadith here is saying that what? Some of them could be afflicted, but it will not generalize all of them, if you want to sum it up. Keep it concise. Is it clear? Is it clear what I'm saying or not? Are you writing this down or are you just biting your fingernails? طيب. So then it says, وَأَلَّا يُسَلِّطَ عَلَيْهِمْ عَدُوًا مِّن سِوَى أَنفُسِهِمْ فَيَسْتَبِيحَ بَيْضَتَهُمْ. He said that he will not give power to an enemy from other than themselves. فَيَسْتَبِيحَ بَيْضَتَهُمْ. And they will legalize and they will take their possessions. We're going to talk about that right now. طيب. As we know also, this is the same thing that was applied in the first narration of this hadith applies here. The same exact thing. Because it has been established by tarikh, by history, that the non-Muslims were given power over the what? Over the Muslims. That has happened. What happened with Tatar? What happened with the what? What happened with the Mongolians? Didn't they not kill millions of people? And come in and slaughter a lot of millions of Muslims? That happened. Right or wrong? As even Ibn Kathir mentioned Bidayah wa Nihaya, when the Mongolians came, the Tatar came and they decimated the Muslims. To the point where they said blood was blood and their books was red and it was black because of so much ink, because of literature that was burned up, and a lot of people that were killed. And a lot of pillage and a lot of carnage that came as a result of Tatar when they came in and they what? And they slaughtered the Muslims. As a result of who, as we talked about everyone? The Shia. As the Shia, as Tulsi was the one who was a Rafidi, he opened the door for the Mongolians to come right in and kill the Muslims. As he did what? As he told the Khalifa, and he dismantled the army of the Muslims in a very cunning, slick way, until there was nothing left of the army. And then, as in co-conspiring with Tatar, with the Mongolians, Tulsi, who was a Rafidi, set him up, dismantled the army with the Khalifa of the Muslims, and the Mongolians came in and decimated them. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So it says here that it can what? It can happen. So some of the enemies, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did give what? Enemies to the power over the what? Over or against the Muslims, whether it be from the Mongolians or from the Crusades. I'm sure everyone heard the history of the what, everyone? The Salibiyun, the Crusades. Certain people have heard about the Crusades. How they also killed a number of Muslims who were Christians. They were called the Salibiyun. And we know what happened was the Salibiyun who killed and raided mayhem, mass hysteria, and carnage and pillage against the Muslims. And they killed them. And that was another way in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave power to the non-Muslims against the what? Against the Muslims. It happened. So what's the meaning of the hadith here then? It's the same thing that I just mentioned in the first part, which is what, everyone? That doesn't matter that all the Muslims will be what? Eradicated. Just maybe some in certain places while others remain. So that's the meaning. Also from the meaning of the hadith, فَيَسْتَبِيحُ بَيْضَتَهُمْ, that they will legalize or take all of their possessions. The meaning of يَسْتَبِيحُ بَيْضَتَهُمْ بَيْضَةَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ حَوْزَتَهُمْ أو ما عندهم من ممتلكات الأرض. Meaning it can mean one of two things. The word baydah, it can either mean their possessions or what they possess of land in kingdom and cities. Is it clear what I'm saying? It can mean either or. What they have of possessions or what they possess of land or cities or kingdoms or what have you. That's what it means. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will get or give power to an enemy, and he will take all of their belongings, and they will take all of their land, all of their countries. Meaning that they will not generalize all the Muslims, maybe some at one point in time, where others still remain. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying so far, everyone? I'll answer you in a second. Is it clear what I'm saying or not? I even read quickly. What it mentions is, يَسْتَبِيحَ. Matter of fact, how do you translate it? Translate because we got prayer. I'm about to stop. يَسْتَبِيحَ بَيْضَتَهُم. How do they translate it in your books, everyone? That they will not give an enemy to, that Allah will not give power to an enemy other than themselves. It stops there? Is there anything else left after that? They didn't mention. No. What does it say? It stops? It cuts it off? Let me see. Verily, I asked my Lord. Yeah, it says right. I asked my Lord that my woman not destroyed by a drought, and that it not be overcome by enemies outside of them. That's what I was looking for. Oh, you're right. It doesn't say that. Ajib. Why did they drop that out? It's not in the book. حذفوه. ما أدري إيش. المهم, we say, and if you look in your books, everyone, if it says in a book, فَيَسْتَبِيحُ بَيْضَتُهُم, it's not written in there. It's not there. It's غير مكتوب. I don't know why. They didn't write it. I don't know why it's not there. But at any rate, it says clearly in the narration that they will come and they will what? They will take all their belongings. Or they will take all of their land. Meaning that they will be generalized. Where their lands will be taken from them totally. Or they'll be wiped out totally. But because it has happened where the Muslims had land and they lost it to the non-Muslims. This has happened in history. It's been established. It has happened and it's been established, and it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again due to the fact the Prophet ﷺ informed, which is in Sahih Muslim, which is in the chapter of Alamat as-Sa'ah, from the signs of the hour, is that Rome will be the majority of the people of the earth. And they will also return back to what? To the land of Turkey, and they will occupy it again. Right now, Turkey is under the land of the Muslims, right or wrong? So the majority is dominated by Muslims. At the end of time, it will return back to the hands of Rome again. The Prophet ﷺ informed that. It's in Sahih Muslim, it's in there. You understand? So to let you know, of course, the time that it's going to what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen. So what's the meaning of the hadith again? What is it, everyone, so we can stop? Because we're going to stop. That's basically to sum it up. That can happen at certain times in certain places where others will remain, and at certain time at other places, that other places will take that a catastrophe or something catastrophic will happen, where they will go away and the others on the other side will remain. Where certain lands will remain under the authority of the Muslim or the jurisdiction of the Muslims and the power of the Muslims, where some others will be taken away. Is it clear or not? But it will not generalize where Islam will be totally wiped out. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear or not? طيب, let's stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. تفضل حسن.